Today we are going to the house of Mark Barrera, who recently discovered what appears to be a map of the Andersonville Prison, a Confederate prison that held thousands of Union soldiers who lived in such horrendous conditions that many believe that the conditions at Andersonville were a conspiracy against the Northern soldiers. So how did you find the map?
My grandfather recently died.
Oh, I'm sorry for your loss.
Whether this is a legitimate map of the prison and who might have used the map, if it belonged to a prison warden or a guard, and more information on the prison and what it was like.
I'll see what I can find out for you. Nice meeting you, Mark.
Thank you, ma'am.
Today we are going to meet up with Professor Charlotte McGonigal to find out more info about the map and the Andersonville Prison. Hi!
Hello there, Anne.
Oh, you must be Professor Charlotte.
Yes, I am. How are you?
I'm fine.
Okay, please take a seat.
So I came here to ask you, what can you tell us about this map?
Well, it is a very authentic looking map. It belonged to the prison commander, Captain Henry Rose. He was enlisted in the Confederate States Army of May of 1861, I believe. During the Battle of Seven Pines in May 1862, he was wounded and lost the use of his right arm. After this injury, he was assigned to the staff of General John H. Winder, the men in charge of the Confederate prison of war camps. Wells took over the Andersonville Prison, which is formerly called Camp Sumter, and it was established in 1864.
What was the prison like?
Well, the prisoners began to arrive before the camp was fully constructed, and the area had to be enlarged to 26 acres to hold the excess of 23,000 soldiers. The prison was almost always short on food, and the food that they did have was very bad quality. The water supply soon became polluted when waste was dumped upstream. Then by August of 1864, the prison's population reached 33,000, which is far too large for the prison to support. The prison created a swamp, which is right here, and which is near the river, right there, which is ironically called the Sweetwater Branch. That became the lavatory. It became a breeding ground for disease and had an odor that spread to the entire camp. Within 7 months, 1/3 of the prisoners died due to dysentery, and as usual procedure, they were buried within a mass grave. Andersonville had a deadline, which is located in this area right here. This is the deadline, which is a fence that was approximately 19 to 25 feet high. It was inside the stockade wall to designate a no man's land that kept the prisoners away from the stockade wall. There were sentries posted around the stockade wall that would shoot at anyone trying to escape. Because of the lack of Confederate manpower, the guards present only prevented escape. They didn't control the prisoners. There was a group of prisoners organized by William Mosby Collins of Pennsylvania. They called themselves the Raiders. They attacked the other prisoners to steal food, clothing, and money. They armed themselves with clubs and even got killed to get what they wanted. Another group of prisoners that called themselves the Regulators caught all the Raiders, and they would then the Raiders would get tried by the judge Peter McCullough, and then they were found guilty. Sentenced to what was called running of the gauntlet, which is basically when they were being forced to run through an area lined by men armed with clubs, and 3 of the raiders died by running the gauntlet. Others were sent to stocks, and 6 were sentenced to hang. Conditions only worsened during the summer months. Nearly 100 prisoners died every day. Andersonville operated until the end of the war and held more Union soldiers than any other Confederate Army camp, with more than 45,000 men, with nearly 30% who died in captivity. The North learned about the conditions of the prison before the war was over and demanded retribution, despite the fact that the North had its own prison camps that were almost as bad as Andersonville. It is far more likely that the high death rate was based on mismanagement and shortages than any deliberate attempt of mistreatment.
I can't imagine how the prisoners felt.
Here, I have a book somewhere with diary entries. This one is it. These are entries from Alfred H. Voorhees of the 1st NY Cavalry, which is also known as the Lincoln Cavalry, who was a prisoner at Andersonville. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. I'm going to say a few things that he's written. July 23rd. Cloudy and cool appearance of a storm. Hope it will not be long one. The weather is very changeable and unhealthy. Father is hard up and will have to be careful if he gets out alive. George has a bad cold. I feel as well as can be expected on forage and raw meat.
What happened after the Civil War?
After the war, Captain Henry was tried by a U.S. military court and was convicted of war crimes. He was hanged in November 1865 for, and I quote, impairing the health and destroying the lives of prisoners. Clara Barton, whom of which is the founder of Red Cross, and other government workers compiled a list of 12,912 prisoners who had died at the camp. The mass graves were replaced by a national cemetery, which is still used as a burial ground today for American veterans. And some artifacts of the prison later got added to the museums and the U.S. Library of Congress, like this map. As you can see, it was added to the U.S. Library of Congress on March 1st, 1910. And some of the notoriety of Andersonville had only increased over the years.
What do you mean?
Well, it's not really my area of expertise, but here is the number of someone who might be able to help you.
Well, thank you for all of your help today. It was a pleasure to meet you.
It's no problem.
So today we are going to meet with Persephone Jones, who was recommended by Professor Charlotte. And she will tell us about more recent history of the Andersonville. Well, is there anything that you can tell me about this?
It appears to be a map of the Andersonville Prison. I take it Charlotte has already told you all about the history of it?
Yes, she told me how you could help me find out more recent history.
Like many Civil War battlefields and forts, Andersonville Prison is rumored to be haunted.
Haunted?
Yes, in fact it's rated as one of the most haunted places in America.
What evidence is there of these hauntings?
Well, besides the noise of gunshots, marching, and moaning, Charlotte has already told you how Sweetwater Branch became essentially their bathroom system and how it created a smell that permeated the entire camp. Well, whenever there's a haunting, like a sight of it, where they saw a ghost or anything like that, they say that they smelt that.
Is that all of the evidence?
There's also accounts of a Mr. Bill Blue and Curry McClellan who visited the park and spitted on the grave of the executed raiders. Afterwards, they fell asleep in their van, and a little after midnight, they awoke to the putrid stench, and they heard voices shouting for Willie, the raiders' leader.
Really?
Oh, and this also happened to be on the anniversary of the Raiders' execution.
Well, is there anything else you can tell me about the recent history?
There was a historian once, Robert Berry, who wrote about the Andersonville Prison in his thesis. Berry was walking the grounds when he saw a figure walking ahead of him. Like Bill and McLennan, he smelled the putrid odor, and the stranger suddenly vanished ahead of him. Then Berry heard a voice behind him asking if he would like his last rites. When he turned around, Berry saw the ghost of Father Llewellyn, a Catholic priest who tried to comfort the inmates.
Well, thank you very much for all of your help, Persephone. It was nice meeting you.
You too.
Well, there you go. We have solved the case of the infamous Andersonville Prison map. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time on History to Tell.
Wait, I'm gonna... Go bloopers. Start again.
I don't want bloopers!
We're doing a blooper. Pretend that you had a house fire and you didn't save your turtle, so your turtle died.
My turtle died before. My sister left the heater on.
Okay. Oh, this is still recording. Oops. Please tell me you know that.
Swamp. Oh, there's no map.
Oh, damn.
Then what?
Keep going from that line.
Then what? Oh, I can't imagine how the Christmas felt.
AKA Kanika's voice. Oh my god. Wait.
I'm sorry.
You laughed too. Tell us you laughed and I laughed. Bloopers.
My life? Yeah. Oh, I thought we were starting from yours. Oh, okay, I get it now. Yay!